2020 Democratic candidates set to face off in just a few hours. We're live in Detroit, Michigan, ahead of round one of the CNN debates. What could be a game-changing night for the U.S. presidential race? Also ahead, we're learning new details from investigators about the case against two American teenagers suspected of killing an Italian police officer. And Hong Kong's protesters test new tactics targeting rush hour commuters on Tuesday morning. Hello and welcome to Connect the World. I'm Lynda Kinkade, live from CNN's World Headquarters here in Atlanta. Good to have you with us. Well, we are just hours away now from what could be one of the most important nights in determining who will get the chance to take on Donald Trump in 2020. CNN is hosting the second Democratic presidential debate in Detroit, Michigan. And there are so many candidates that we have broken it up into two rounds. With a field this crowded, it is critical to have a standout moment. And the stakes could not be higher as some contenders' political survival could be on the line. These 10 candidates will take the stage tonight. The big matchup could be between Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, though others will be closely watched as well, including Beto O'Rourke. We're going to talk about all of that and much more. Athena Jones is at the debate venue and joins us now live. Athena, good to see you. I want you to first give us a sense of what we can expect when it comes to Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, because this is the first time we have seen them side by side on a debate stage, and they're friends, right?
Absolutely, Lynda. They are friends. Both of them have made a point of saying that they're friends. And Bernie Sanders recently was asked, what should people expect of their matchup tonight? And he said, intelligence. We know that neither one of them is signaling that they want to go after the other in an aggressive fashion, but it's also important for them to explain to voters, especially this liberal voting bloc that they are both appealing to, why those voters should choose them, choose one candidate over the other. I should mention that when it comes to Warren and Sanders, Warren has been steadily on the rise. Sanders has been going in the opposite direction, including in the latest Quinnipiac poll, where we saw Elizabeth Warren second behind Joe Biden at about 15% of the vote. Sanders sinking down to 11%. And so it's going to be important for each of them to be able to distinguish themselves from each other. And we know that even if they don't necessarily want to kind of have a negative or a clash, we know that the moderators are going to be looking to draw the distinctions, to draw the contrast between them. And so that's something we'll certainly be watching, and they'll be in the center of the stage. One more thing I should mention, Lynda, is that they're going to be flanked by moderates, Pete Buttigieg, Beto O'Rourke, and a bunch of other moderates on the stage, folks who agree with some of the critics within the Democratic Party who are saying that the party is drifting too far to the left. Those folks are going to want to argue that they have more pragmatic, more realistic, less costly policy proposals that won't scare people when it comes to being too liberal. So those are the things we're going to be looking for tonight.
And of course, let's talk about where you are. You're in Detroit, Michigan. We're seeing a lot of gentrification going on in that city. I was there just a few weeks ago. But this particular state is crucial when it comes to politics and what happened in 2016. Talk to us about that.
Absolutely. This is one of the states that was supposed to be part of the blue wall that was going to make sure that Hillary Clinton won the White House. Of course, that did not happen. President Trump won this state by around 10,000 votes. That is not a lot of votes. We're talking about less than half a percentage point. So it was very, very close here. And Democrats, one of the reasons the Democratic National Committee chose Detroit to have this debate is because of the centrality of Michigan to this next race. And so we know that this state, it's Rust Belt state. They've had issues with manufacturing. We know that General Motors is planning to close a plant in Warren, Michigan, near here. So that's sort of heading in the wrong direction in terms of manufacturing. But Democrats are going to want to focus on Michigan and on the kinds of voters that voted perhaps twice for President Obama and then switched to Trump. And so we're likely to hear them stress economic issues, kitchen table issues, health care. They want to make sure they don't just talk about things like Medicare for all, but also talk about the kinds of things that are keeping folks awake at night. And we've heard from Democrats, operatives, folks like Rahm Emanuel. He was President Obama's first chief of staff, longtime Democratic operative, and he's kind of put out a warning to the Democratic field saying we don't want to see what we saw in Miami, where there was a lot of policies that were pretty on the extreme left, the kind of things that can scare people. Don't talk so much about taking away people's private health insurance parents. Talk about what voters in Green Bay, Wisconsin, or Grand Rapids, Michigan, want to hear about. The concerns they have have more to do with their bottom line, paying for their health care, that sort of thing. Lynda?
Athena Jones in Detroit, Michigan, staying across it all for us. Thank you so much. We'll speak to you soon. Well, we're going to stay on this story because I want to talk more about what to watch for tonight. We are joined by CNN senior political analyst David Gergen, a former advisor to 4 U.S. presidents, and CNN political commentator Bakari Sellers. Good to have you with us, gentlemen. I really appreciate your time today. I'm going to start first with you, David Gergen, because we have heard over the last few days President Trump appearing to go on his strategy of divide and polarize, especially when it comes to racism. Who do you think could tackle that best tonight?
I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time with the line. I couldn't really understand your question. Perhaps you can talk to Bakari while we get it straightened out.
Absolutely, David. We'll sort that out for you. Did you hear me, Bakari?
Yeah, sure. So I think that, tonight what you're going to have is a stage that lacks the diversity of a Wednesday night, but each candidate from Pete Buttigieg to Beto O'Rourke are going to be able to have to tackle these issues. I expect them all to do it well, but you're going to have a variety of opinions. You're going to have a wide swath of individuals who will have to deal with this looming issue, because Donald Trump is not attempting to lift anyone up. He's not thinking that unification is a strategy to win this election. Instead, he's trying to be as divisive as possible. And so all of these candidates are going to have to lay forth the vision of what they want this country to be. And I think that they're going to have to put forth a message of unification, whereas Donald Trump wants to divide the country.
We have a poll out that it's a Fox News poll. They didn't really cover much to do with the results of this poll, but we have the results, and it found that almost 60% of people who were asked whether the president respects minorities said that he does not. Almost 60% says he doesn't respect racial minorities. And when you look at the answers from non-whites, that jumped up to almost 73%. Certainly, who do you think, I want to go to David on this question now, who do you think is going to handle that best when it comes to taking on Trump? And do you think from the president's perspective, is this his way to distract from the real issues?
She's asking, David, who's going to...
Give me a quick one now.
Yeah, she was asking, is this going to distract from issues, and who do you think is going to handle his racial tone the best?
I do think, once again, Donald Trump is trying to be a disruptor in the Democratic Party process. He wants to call attention to himself, but he's also trying to drive the conversation on the stage and have the Democrats less able to deal with the issues of the future, whether it be health care or, whether we be problems at our borders and that sort of thing. So I think this is a bit of mischief on his part. It's just he seems to be inevitably drawn to it. But I don't think, if you look at it, Bakari may have a sense of this as well. If you look at it, this is not working for Trump. Joe Biden has actually strengthened his lead over Trump in recent days, despite Biden's own stumbling in the first debates. He's opened up at least a 10-point lead over Trump in the national polls, and if state by state, it's looking better for Biden. In places like Michigan, where we are now in the critical state, it's looking better for Biden. So, these appeals to racism, while they work with some parts of the base, there is evidence that some women who otherwise would support Trump because of the economy, some women are peeling away because they're so horrified by this racist division and polarization.
You made an interesting point about Joe Biden, because he didn't do very well at the last debate, and it led many to question whether it's his time to move on. And I want to direct this question to Bakari. And if you can talk to us about this divide, this generational divide between, even tonight we'll see Elizabeth Warren, a Harvard professor, a boomer, up against a millennial, the likes of Buttigieg, a Harvard student. How do you think that age gap is going to play out?
Well, I don't think that the candidates explicitly will make a comment about race, not explicitly. But what they will do is try to get those images of a Bernie Sanders in a split screen with a Pete Buttigieg, or a Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren in a split screen with Beto O'Rourke. Those are some of the things that you will see tonight. And it's a very interesting topic that you raise when you're having a discussion about age. The New York Times and Jonathan Martin just wrote a piece about it. But there is a bit of context that a lot of Americans and a lot of viewers around the world just saw Bob Mueller's performance this week. Bob Mueller is 74 years old, 2 years younger than Joe Biden, and Bob Mueller looked as if he had, was 74 years old. And so Joe Biden has to be very cautious, but very crisp as well. And so will Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. I think that this is more philosophical within the party than generational, but I do think that all 20 or 30 or 40 people who are running for president, I have lost count, have to do a good job of energizing the base, which includes young people.
Yeah, let me add to that. It does seem to me that this is a big debate for Joe Biden. He's probably the central player in the next two nights, because if he has another stumbling night, as he did, if he's as hesitant as he was the first debate, as unfocused as he was slow on the uptake, that could be very damaging for him. On the other hand, if he bounces back tonight, if he's crisp, as Bakari says, if he gets to the point and is responding well to the questions, he can erase a lot of the bad feelings that came out of the first debate. We saw that back a long time ago, when President Reagan was running for re-election and was, quite into his 70s. He had a first debate with the Democratic opponent Walter Mondale, stumbled, looked like he was out of it. Immediately, there were big questions about, is he getting senile? Is he too old to stay in office? And he came back out in the second debate, said, I was overstuffed with facts that first time, but more importantly, he used humor to deflate the concerns, and he was very effective at it. Mondale, as soon as he heard the joke that Reagan said, he said he felt like he knew it was over right then.
Absolutely. Well, these debates over the next two nights certainly will weed out the weak. Half of them won't make it to the next round in September. David Gergen and Bakari Sellers, so good to have you. Apologies for the technical problems, but thanks for your time.
It's live TV. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It is indeed. Well, many Democratic candidates have made climate change one of the key issues of their campaigns. But what exactly are their plans for combating it? CNN's Bill Weir takes a look.
Every leading Democrat for president agrees.
It's a simple question. What is the biggest threat to who is the geopolitical threat to the United States?
To save life as we know it.
Senator Warren.
Climate change.
Yeah, Senator Booker.
Nuclear proliferation and climate change.
America must join her allies to fight World War C.
Well, first of all, I don't even call it climate change. It's a climate crisis.
All of them say the U.S. should rejoin the Paris Accords. But few have detailed exactly how they would stop humanity from cooking itself on fossil fuel. Less than half the field has put out a comprehensive climate plan, and most of those are thin. But the first came from Beto O'Rourke.
We are announcing the most ambitious climate plan in the history of the United States.
To run against Ted Cruz for Senate last year, he took individual donations from oil and gas executives. But he swore off their money this time and now vows to spend $5 trillion to get America off of oil and gas. He favors essentially outlawing carbon pollution by 2050, while others like Kirsten Gillibrand prefer a carbon tax. She'd have polluters pay a stiff $52 for each ton burned and would use the money on a national energy transition.
We want to use innovation, entrepreneurialism, and new technologies for wind, solar, geothermal, hydropower, biofuels.
But Pete Buttigieg and John Delaney would pass carbon tax money directly to you.
The greatest challenges we face in the future will be over technology, intellectual property, clean energy, a warming planet.
Joe Biden caught grief from climate hawks for floating a middle ground approach. And while his $1.7 trillion plan is vague, he has Obama's green legacy to run on. Elizabeth Warren is in for $2 trillion and wants to start the fight by forcing corporations to report exactly how much damage they are doing to the planet, and then use that data to keep lobbyists and lawmakers honest.
It's 25 years of corruption in Washington that we're paying for now.
Cory Booker is a rare fan of nuclear energy, and like fellow Senator Kamala Harris, often emphasizes environmental justice for those poor communities already being hit the hardest. But the most detailed plan by far comes from Jay Inslee.
Other candidates might put it on their to-do list. That just does not cut it.
The Washington governor would spend $9 trillion, create a GI Bill for displaced miners and frackers, and force every new car to be 100% zero emission by 2030. To him, everything on the president's desk, from the economy to health to national defense, is a climate issue.
We can't, tell China to solve the problem if we refuse to. We need to inspire them to act in the rest of the world and not give them an excuse for inaction.
Bernie Sanders has yet to release a detailed climate plan, surprising given his decades-old passion for the topic. He is a leading proponent of the Green New Deal, also a plan big on ambition, short on specifics. Green New Deal! Green New Deal! But the young activists behind this call to arms are short on patience. The Sunrise Movement wants America off oil and gas 15 years faster than Beto, Inslee, and the rest. For this generation, it's great that the grown-ups on this stage are finally talking about their planet. But if the threat is as bad as they say, the ideas and urgency are just too little too late. Bill Weir, CNN, New York.
Well, don't miss the debates. They will be live on CNN, coverage beginning at 8 p.m. Eastern Time in the United States. You can see encore presentations at 7 a.m. London time, 2 p.m. in Hong Kong, Wednesday and Thursday. That's only on CNN.